Yo, what's up? Johnny Mac here. So I just wanted to do a couple part series and just go over some basic project management tactics and strategies that I personally use. Before I went full time into wholesaling and real estate investing, I was a project manager. I worked for 5 years, in 2013, I guess, for 5 years for a $500 million site contractor. So, what is a site contractor? That basically we do all the horizontal. So, if you see a site being developed, maybe like a warehouse, I've done a lot of warehouses. Um, you'll see that it'll start out with trees and then they'll start moving the dirt and then they'll do the infrastructure. So for me, my finish line or goal line as a site contractor was always curb, stone, and pave. When you get to curb, stone, and pave, you're basically at the end as far as your work, where you hand it off to the vertical contractor, the building contractor, the GC, etc. So today, what I want to do is just go over real fast. As you guys know, we're building out Paceway Community Development, and we're at a point now where we're about to pave or hit our milestone, which is our base pavement. We're actually going to hit that on 10/30. We're scheduled to pave. Originally, when we first started this way back in June, I had built out this schedule and projected that we're going to pave by 10/10. Now, due to a couple delays that happened, waiting for water testing, running into some paperwork and permits and things like that, and some weather delays, we are now going to pave on 10/30. Now, if you think about that, we're about 20 days behind schedule, which in the big scheme of things, we can make that up because our site work is basically complete. Now, you might be thinking, what the heck are you talking about? Well, let me just go over real fast for this project. Now, all projects are different. This project started off a single family home, and we actually went in there and cleared. So if you look at this picture, this is an aerial view looking down. In the township, there was a single family home. There was a chicken coop back here. So we came in, we demoed the chicken coop. Actually, Pace Morby was there doing that. He started that. Then we came in, we demoed the house. And here's your demo map, right? So here's the existing building, the chicken coop. There was a single family house. There was a garage. We took care of that. We took care of this, demoed it. And then we came in and cleared. So with the clearing, and I use this software, I've been using this software forever. I love it, Bluebeam. Um, I just love it. It's good for takeoffs, good for documentations. You can export stuff. But anyway, this is basically the tree line that we ended up cutting down, and we actually ended up cutting down some of these branches over here when we ran the water line. But this was all of that. We took that off. We came in here. We set our ENS controls up around the side, which basically is required per the conservation district. We demoed the houses, we cleared all the trees, and now we're in the process of building out these separate models and pads. So, what did that detail? I mean, we had a bunch of grading. If you look at these plans, and this is just a typical overview, if you've never seen a grading plan or look at grading lines, you have existing versus the proposed. So this project was a 5,000 cubic yard import. So this area in the back here was low. So we had to import 5,000 cubic yards of fill and build this up to the proposed lines, which is right here. So, and I can show you the existing grading lines. Let's see if I can find that sheet. Oh, right here. So even on the demo, they show you the existing. So if you look at from up here, you're at 351. And back here, you're at 336. So if you take 351 minus 336, you got about a 15 feet drop from front to back. So in other words, up here in the front, it's over there, and then it goes downhill. So we had to fill back here to bring it up. So, but now, what we did was we came in here, we did all that. We put in the sanitary. We actually tied in right here. There was an existing main running, so we tied in. We put in new pipe. I have videos of that on my Instagram of us doing that. We actually ran water up the side here. I also have videos of that. And then we tied in. So now we have all these water services. And then the previous video that I did, you can see that the cleanouts are right up, right above, or right out here, where we're getting ready to now start with the pads to go vertical. So that's basically it for the site work. The site work now is basically done until the next phase, which will be in 2026. Here's some other shots which shows your elevation view. So you have aerial views and then you have elevation views, which basically it shows your water main, shows your storm. And typically, storm's orange when you mark this stuff up, sanitary is green, and blue obviously is your water. Red is your electrical work and things like that. But that varies from person to person. Here's some profiles of the sanitary sewer, just to give you an idea of an overview of typical plans. I remember when I first started doing this, it was overwhelming, but once you know the basics, it's like driving a car. You get in any different type of car, you have a gas pedal, you have brakes, you have shifts, you have automatics, you have a steering wheel. It's all basically the same stuff. Um, so yeah, here's the water line that we put in. If you watch the videos, we actually crossed the street, ran that all the way down here. And you can see the curb line of the existing curb line right here. And there is a water main that comes down here and then shoots up to this development. And we actually tied into that. So now Paceway Community Development will be fed water. So there you go. And we also have to do sprinklers, which will be for provided through the water. What else? Also, with ENS controls, erosion and settlement, it's very important. If you're disturbing, I believe it's 1+ acre of land, you need to get an ENS permit. So this needs to be followed in sequence. They want to see that your storm is installed. They want to see that basins are installed. So basically, when it rains on site, the water that comes down doesn't just run off uncontrollably. This controls the site. So after this site is completely developed and it rains, you're going to have all the rain running off into the curb, and then it'll go into the storm pipes, which will then dump off into this basin in the back. And then there's netting. That's what all the green represents, is some netting that stabilizes it. Obviously, if you've ever seen water run down dirt, it kind of erodes into it. So that's what the netting does and just gives it some more stabilization. So let's see if there's anything else. Here's an important, this is usually on the erosion and settlement control notes, which is your sequence of construction. So when the conservation district, and conservation districts are in every single state, from what I understand, they're basically the police of your storm management. They want to see that you do all of this stuff in sequence. Now you can work with them to kind of get some of this stuff logically moved. But you note here I have this noted right here is 8, begin construction of building foundation. So in other words, in order for A to happen, or in order for B to happen, it has to happen. So what is A? Basically your sub base. And that's what we're going to be doing, is your 4 inches of your sub base for the pavement. So once we get that down, and if you go back to the site plan, um, let's see. Yeah, that's this right here. We're going to put our base pavement. Now, why do they want that down? And before you start building vertical, because think about this. God forbid there was some type of an emergency and fire trucks needed to get in here. They can't be driving a fire truck through the dirt. So that's for safety reasons. And then also just for sequence and proper runoff. So go back to the construction notes. That's very important. Like where you deep dive into here, you kind of know what you need to do. And like I said, when you have a pre-con meeting in the front of the project being started, you can kind of request certain things if it makes sense. So right now what I'm doing, since we're getting ready to we're basically we cleared, we did the demo, we did the earthwork. This is pretty much complete. We did our erosion controls, we established our sediment basins, we did our storm work, our sewer, our water. All this is complete. We're hitting our milestone now, which again was bumped 30 or 20 days. So now we have our build out. And what I'm doing is I'm starting to go through this. So I have my site work 2026. Basically, what remains, after we're constructed, we're going to do our landscaping in the meantime. And again, I'm still framing this out and putting logic behind it. In other words, step one, two, three, four. I shared with my team today about the Panama Canal. Like, if you want to get from the Atlantic to the Pacific, in a ship, you have to go through each chambers. And then once that chamber fills up or lowers you, then you can go into the next chamber. And it's the same concept when you're thinking about a schedule and you're thinking about urgencies and priorities and milestones is you need to get the first chamber completed so then you can move on to the next chamber. Now with a schedule, sometimes the chamber can be half completed and you can start the next task. So that's kind of like how we do it. So now as we are done our milestone with the base. And I still have site work. If you think about the horizontal work, right? We still have some of that left. We're going to wait to do the sidewalks. We're going to wait to do the aprons because we don't want that stuff getting damaged. We're going to wait to do the driveways. We're going to wait to do the landscaping because we're going to have dirt still being moved. We're going to have basements being moved. We're going to have equipment out there on site. We still need to put the site lighting in, which will be ran parallel with the dry utilities, which is your gas, electric, communications, etc. That's going to go in. And then at the end, we need to convert our rain gardens. So if I go back to my plans, and this is like typical on most job sites these days because of the way that they have DEP and different construction laws and regulations, and God forbid you have a little bit of cloudy water run off to another site. God forbid you have dust. They call it fugitive dust that gets stirred up on your site and then drifts over to someone else's house. That's called fugitive dust. So they're very big on that, as they should be. I mean, it's safety and it's for the environment. So at the end here, this is the basin conversion. What we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're actually going to scrape out any silt or debris that's in here, and we're going to fill that with like 2 feet of amended soils, which is like a compost that you would use for your gardens mixed with like some sand. I don't think we get sand on this one, but that just and then we're gonna plant some tree not trees some small plants and shrubs and things and like that. But if you ever go onto a job site, you ever go onto an existing development, warehouse, anything, you're gonna see these basins, and that's part of construction. And then it's very important, and it can really be simple to really being complex. I've built um wise supermarkets, warehouses, where they have these huge underground basins to manage the storm. It's like on millions of dollars. So this site, pretty basic, little basin, a couple little rain gardens. But yeah. But anyway, back to the schedule. Let's see. Yeah, the schedule. So that's next year, 2026. So I'll be working on that, making sure that's all lined up. Obviously, we got our asphalt driveways, our paving the wearing course. So we put about 4 inches down for the base, and then when we're done the job site, we put that final top coat of 1.5 inches after everything's done. So now what I'm doing is I'm framing out um, the construction part of it. So I'm just framing it out, and I'm going through logically. When I say logically, again, going back to that illustration of the Panama Canal, In order for you to get to compartment B, you need to finish part compartment A. For example, in order to start framing, you need to finish your foundations. And then when your foundations are done, you do your framing, you do your shell work. And then from there, you do your rough-ins, your more not flexible materials that need to be, that are solid state or hard versus, you can move them around. And then you do your insulation, drywall. So that's where I'm at today. I am going through that and I'm framing this out. I hope that added value to somebody and you can kind of see. And at the end of the day, this is not like it, I was telling the developer of Paceway Community Development because I'm working through getting the building permit. And he was like, it's really not that hard. I'm like, yeah, I understand, but I like never did a building permit before. So, if you want to, you can't learn how to fight by reading a book. Sometimes you just gotta have that fight. You got to get into the ring, however you want to frame it out. You need to learn, get hit, understand what it's like to get hit, understand what it's like to fall down. But what's awesome is you just keep pushing through it. And guess what? People, thousands of people have done this before. It's really not that hard. But for me, it's learning and getting it down. But like for schedules and stuff, I'm a pro at this. I've built thousands of schedules. I've done thousands of site work developments and stuff like that as far as groundwork, and planning and stuff, but not the building aspect. So but just working through that. But I understand schedules, and you can see I'm already framing this out because I already understand schedules. I understand construction, and it's all the same thing. It's just wrapped with different wrapping paper differently. But when you open up the box, it's still all the same concepts inside. So that's where I'm at, and I'll make another video when we start with the foundations and when I finalize all these schedules. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Follow me on Instagram, John F. McAllister, and then obviously YouTube, same thing. And let's keep growing and learning together and keep crushing it. So let's go.